In August 2025, the winds of Anchorage, Alaska, carried news of a seismic shift. The city, known for its breathtaking landscapes, became the unlikely epicenter of a global political earthquake. President Donald Trump, standing with Vladimir Putin, endorsed a Russian-led peace plan that forced Ukraine to cede the rest of Donbass. This unprecedented move sent shockwaves through the international community. In exchange, Putin offered a ceasefire and a vague promise of no further aggression. A deal struck in a private, interpreter-free meeting that left allies reeling. The lack of transparency only deepened the mistrust. Trump's administration abandoned the Western demand for a ceasefire before negotiations, instead presenting a calm plea, brokered with the aggressor, not the allies. This marked a stark departure from traditional diplomatic protocols. The suspension of economic penalties against Russia was the final, bitter pill. It signaled a dramatic shift in U.S. policy, prioritizing immediate gains over long-term stability. This marked a fundamental reordering of American foreign policy, prioritizing short-term deals over principles of sovereignty and international law. The implications were profound and far-reaching. Trump shattered the Western consensus that aggression must not be rewarded, betting that Putin's signature was worth more than decades of collective security. This gamble left many questioning the future of international alliances. For Ukraine, it was a devastating betrayal. President Zelensky was left scrambling, forced to choose between dismemberment or fighting alone. The sense of abandonment was palpable. The Anchorage summit didn't just redraw borders, it shook the entire post-Cold War order, leaving a chasm of uncertainty. The world was left to grapple with the new reality. The world watched as the ground shifted beneath its feet, uncertain of what the future would hold. The ripple effects of this summit would be felt for years to come. The Anchorage summit sent shockwaves through Europe, fracturing the Western alliance overnight. Britain, France, and Germany issued a rare joint rebuke, vowing to increase penalties on Russia and rejecting Trump's deal outright. The Nordic and Baltic states, fearing for their own security, declared Putin untrustworthy and insisted Ukraine's right to join NATO, and the EU was non-negotiable. Trump's willingness to bargain away these principles was seen as catastrophic, leaving Europe's eastern flank exposed. The crisis forced Europe to confront the reality of an unreliable America, raising the specter of forging its own security path. NATO's credibility wavered as Trump's unilateralism struck at its core. Secretary General Mark Rutte struggled to maintain unity, but shifting rhetoric revealed deep cracks. Europe now stands at a crossroads: capitulate to a new American-Russian axis, or forge an independent destiny. The Alaska summit was months in the making, a gathering that many hoped would reaffirm America's commitment to its allies, but instead, it became the stage for a dramatic policy reversal that sent shockwaves through diplomatic circles. This shift was signaled by Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth's blunt message at NATO headquarters. U.S. support for Ukraine was over, and the era of open-ended assistance had come to a close. Hegseth declared that Ukraine could not expect to restore its pre-2014 borders, nor could it count on the same level of Western backing it once enjoyed. The possibility of joining NATO was off the table, a public dismantling of years of American policy and promises. The U.S.-Ukraine Charter on Strategic Partnership, once a symbol of close cooperation, was rendered obsolete almost overnight. In its place came the so-called Hegseth Doctrine: no more unlimited American investment in Ukraine's war, and a new focus on U.S. interests above all else. The U.S. would now pursue a transactional peace, seeking deals that prioritized American priorities, even if it meant compromising on Ukraine's future. This approach came at the expense of Ukraine's sovereignty, leaving its leaders anxious and uncertain about what would come next. The shift was underscored by excluding Ukraine from key talks, a clear sign that its voice would no longer shape the outcome of negotiations. Instead, its fate would be decided by great powers behind closed doors, not by Kyiv itself, a sobering reality for the Ukrainian people. The Trump administration's approach marked a sharp break from decades of bipartisan consensus, upending the established order in Washington. Ukraine was now viewed as a distant, regional dispute. The new focus: end financial commitments, avoid foreign entanglements, and reduce America's global burdens. The message was unmistakable. American security guarantees are no longer absolute, and allies must prepare to defend themselves. For Ukraine and other allies, the message was brutal. You're on your own, and the world order they once relied on had changed overnight. The Anchorage Agreement echoes the 1945 Yalta Conference, where great powers carved up Europe, sacrificing smaller nations for peace. Today, Trump reprises that role, striking a grand bargain with Putin at Ukraine's expense, placing too much faith in Russian promises. Europe sees Putin's written pledge as worthless, recalling Russia's past treaty violations. History warns that appeasing aggressors rarely brings peace, it only invites further conquest. The secretive Trump-Putin meeting, like Yalta's closed-door sessions, fuels suspicion and anxiety among allies. Unlike Yalta, however, the US is now retreating from its role as global guarantor, dismantling alliances without a clear replacement. The result, a dangerous power vacuum, ripe for exploitation by revisionist powers. As diplomats maneuver, Ukraine faces a grim military reality. Russian forces hold a clear advantage, controlling nearly a fifth of Ukraine's territory. The situation on the ground is dire, with Ukrainian forces stretched thin and constantly under pressure. Years of attritional warfare have left Ukraine with a severe manpower crisis, struggling to replenish exhausted ranks. The toll on the soldiers is immense, with many facing physical and psychological scars. Russia's larger population sustains its relentless offensive, while Ukraine's losses are felt more acutely. The human cost is staggering, with countless families mourning their loved ones. The abrupt US funding cutoff has forced Kyiv to scramble for alternative financing. European aid is a lifeline, but far from enough. The financial strain is palpable, affecting both military and civilian sectors. This dependency makes Ukraine vulnerable to shifting political winds and increases pressure to accept a bad peace. The uncertainty of international support adds to the nation's woes. For the White House, continued support for a likely stalemate is a poor investment. The political calculus in Washington is shifting, with debates on the future of US involvement. Trump frames a negotiated settlement, however painful, as pragmatic. His stance resonates with a war-weary public, eager for an end to the conflict. For Ukraine, it feels like abandonment, forced to negotiate with a gun to its head as its main backer walks away. The sense of betrayal is profound, impacting national morale. The battlefield and diplomatic fronts are now equally perilous. Ukraine's future hangs in the balance, with every decision carrying immense weight. Trump's policy shift is matched by a personal campaign against President Zelensky, blaming Ukraine for the war and echoing Kremlin disinformation. He's questioned Zelensky's legitimacy, calling him a dictator without elections, omitting that martial law suspends voting during war. Trump's rhetoric mirrors Putin's, eroding international support for Ukraine's leader. He's also spread false claims about Zelensky's popularity, distorting poll numbers to justify sidelining him in negotiations. Zelensky, in turn, accuses Trump of living in a Russian disinformation bubble and desperately tries to salvage US support. He appeals to Western interests, touting Ukraine's resources and military value, but faces a coordinated narrative undermining his position. The information war is now as fierce as the one on the battlefield. Trump's peace plan offers Ukraine security guarantees, modeled on NATO's Article 5, but without actual membership or US military involvement. The proposal envisions European peacekeepers, but no US troops and no real NATO protection, rendering the guarantees hollow. Zelensky calls any arrangement without US backing worthless, a paper shield unlikely to deter future Russian aggression. Trump's approach offers the illusion of safety, not real security, avoiding American commitments while demanding Ukrainian concessions. History is not on Kyiv's side. The 1994 Budapest Memorandum's assurances failed when Russia invaded. Having been betrayed before, Ukraine is deeply skeptical of new, non-binding promises. The plan looks less like protection and more like a diplomatic fig leaf for American retreat. For Ukraine, the risk of another betrayal looms large. Trump's declaration on Ukraine is more than a policy shift. It's a catalyst for a new, chaotic world order. The era of American-led, rules-based order is ending, replaced by transactional deals and shifting alliances. Europe, facing an unreliable US, is forced to consider its own defense and strategic autonomy, despite the challenges. This empowers revisionist states like Russia and China, signaling that aggression can pay off and borders are negotiable. Autocratic regimes may now press their claims, believing the US response will be weak. The future of NATO, European unity, and global stability is in flux. The Alaska deal may have ended one chapter in Ukraine, but it's opened a far more uncertain one for the world. The stakes, for Ukraine, Europe, and the global order, have never been higher.